As you know, in Shadow of the Erdtree, there are 8 new weapon types that you can find throughout the entire map, and most of them can be found very early on in the game for at least the very base version of these brand new weapon types. For those just jumping into the DLC, we're going to quickly go over those locations. Let's get into it. To start things off strong in this video, I'm going to show you where you can find your very first Great Katana, which is very easy to find in the very first area you load into in Shadow of the Erdtree. When you get the first map of this area, you'll see this giant lake that you need to head to. You'll come across your very first dragon inside of the DLC where it is sleeping, and right in front of where it is sleeping, you'll see a dead body just hanging out with an item on it. This is going to be your Great Katana. Here are your base stats for this Great Katana. Obviously, it focuses on strength and dex with the strength requirement of 14 and dex requirement of 18. It also has a unique Ash of War called Overhead Stance. This is going to be a unique Ash of War to this Great Katana, and as you can see, it's a very interesting move, but also extremely powerful if used correctly at the right time. The next item on this list is going to be the Backhand Blades, and you're going to understand what I'm talking about as soon as you get to the location I'm marking on the map in this field. It's going to be the only small mausoleum that you see in this field. The dead body next to this little sarcophagus is going to be where you find the Backhand Blade. This is once again a strength and dex based weapon, strength requirement of 10, dex of 13, with an interesting fighting pattern. Is not like anything else we've ever used inside the game before. Keep in mind, these are the very first options you have of this particular weapon type, so there will be stronger versions of these weapons as you progress through this DLC. Now, your very first pair of beast claws can be found right next to the grave site plane, the very first site of grace you come across in this DLC. Simply go to the right to the forest that is right next to this site of grace. You'll end up fighting an NPC. He will be very hard to miss because as soon as you get anywhere close to him, he just starts charging you out of the blue and attacking you relentlessly. Nonetheless, when you do defeat him, you will get the Beast Claw. These are once again a strength and dex based weapon with a strength of 13 requirement and a dex of 11 requirement. These are very fast moving weapons, and any way that you see the NPC fight is basically how you get to use these as well. For our next location, you want to move across the Great Bridge and get to the castle front site of grace. From here, you'll easily be able to go and find a chest that's inside this giant field filled with war tents. Simply make your way back to the ballista that was shooting you on the bridge. Go to the left where you see this little overhang, and in front of this you'll see a chest. Simply open the chest and you'll get your very first perfumer bottles, Firespark perfumer bottles to be specific. These are a complete dex based weapon with a dex rank of C right from the start, with a strength requirement of 3 and a dex requirement of 14. The most unique new weapon in my opinion. Now, moving back to our castle front side of grace, let's go and find your very first light greatsword. So from the castle front side of grace, you want to go to a very particular tower that I'm showing you the pathing for inside of this first legacy dungeon. So go over the bridge, running past the giant to the left where you see these giant set of stairs. Take another left, you're going to come across another overhang that looks over a waterfall. Take another sharp left up these stairs to an overhang where you see the spear guy and a dog. You'll also see a tower with a ladder. As you probably guessed from this point, simply make your way up this ladder. You'll come across a single chest. Open up this chest and you will find your very first light greatsword called Milady. Personally, I'm a big fan of this new type of weapon. Once again, a strength and dex based weapon, strength requirement of 12, dexterity of 17. Now, it has nothing unique or its Ash of War, but there are some ones you can get later in the DLC that are great. Now we need to move over to the Ruined Forge Lava Intake Dungeon where you're able to find your very first throwing weapon, which I think is very unique as well and kind of fun to use if you use it correctly. As you progress through the dungeon, very quickly you'll come across this giant open room with stakes and fires all over the place. Simply continue through the dungeon until you come across the giant lava lake. In this area, you'll see a golem that you have to kill and a dead body with a purple item on it. This purple item is the item that you're looking for, the Smithscript Dagger. Genuinely not all that strong, but it is the very first of its kind. Way more attributes than we normally seen of dex, strength, intelligence, and faith, but all the requirements are very low. Strength of 5, dex 11, intelligence 11, and faith 11. Once again, this is a throwing blade, which is a very unique item that we get to use for the first time. As the name implies, you just keep on throwing the item. You will always have an infinite amount of these items, and you'll find more weapons like this where you could just keep throwing them at people, such as throwing axes, more throwing daggers, and so on and so forth. A very fun weapon to use, but not that strong right at the beginning of the game. Moving on to one of the items that a lot of people are going to be looking for, which is called the Dryleaf Arts, or aka the hand-to-hand combat weapon. Get to the High Road Cross site of grace as fast as you possibly can, either going through the Legacy dungeon or jumping through the cliffs. You'll find this this note left by the monk, and you will also have a new emote given to you called May the Best Win. The letter tells you to go and find this monk at a particular location, which I'll show you here in a second, and you will need to use the emote that you just required again to start a fight with him. Now this monk is not very far at all from the High Road Cross and also from that site of grace. Simply go slowly east to Morth Ruins to another cross in Site of Grace where you will see this monk hanging out, not talking to you, and this is when you have to use the emote to start your fight with him. This is non-negotiable. You have to fight him to get this Dryleaf Arts weapon. Now the fight itself can be difficult simply because he constantly attacks you and hardly gives you any time for a breather, but if you're able to stagger him even a little bit, it gives you a lot of room to knock him back, and this should be fairly easy once you do so. Once he is defeated, you'll be teleported back to that cross and Site of Grace. You will see a brand new item is on the ground that you can pick up. That is going to be the Dryleaf Arts weapon, the hand-to-hand combat weapon, and the same hat that the monk was wearing. Once again, a strength and dex based weapon with a strength requirement of 8 and a dex of 8. Very low requirements for this, and I've seen a lot of fun builds based on how you spec this weapon's attribute. Now the Carian thrusting shield technically isn't early game because you have to go very far into the map to actually get this weapon in one of the legacy dungeons, but there is a way to get it by not fighting any of the bosses in the legacy dungeon and simply going through a back route. All you have to do is go through the path that I'm showing you through the ruins right next to where you fought the monk. There's going to be a lot of jumping throughout this ruins because you have to go through a lot of different levels, going downwards to the very bottom of this area, fighting a couple enemies if you really want to, getting a couple cool items throughout the process, but eventually you're going to come across a small area where there's no one around and there's going to be a ladder going up. This ladder is going to lead to a very particular Site of Grace and a brand new location. This new location is called Bonnie Village, and from here it's very straightforward on where you need to go. Simply follow the pathing and the bridges that are easily marked on the map of this area all the way up to another Site of Grace underneath some ledges called the Church District entrance. From here there's a somewhat particular path you have to go to make sure you get to this brand new Carian thrusting shield quicker, so I'm going to simply let my pathing show you exactly how to get there instead of me narrating over it, and I'll start talking to you once we have the shield in hand. A lot going on and a lot to do to get to this particular thrusting shield, but it is a strength, intelligence, and dex based weapon. Strength requirement is 17, intelligence 15, and dex 13. Now personally, I haven't used this a ton, so I'm going to let you guys decide how much you want to use it when you do go and grab this particular weapon. I can see how this weapon can be fun, but personally for me right now where I am in the DLC, it's not for me. But those are all 8 of the brand new weapon categories we can get in Shadow of the Erdtree. I hope you guys found this location guide helpful. If you did, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Let me know down in the comments what you're using first. Personally, I'm going with the light Greatswords, but again, let me know down in the comments what you guys are doing. Hope you guys found this helpful once again. I'll catch you in the next one.